Welcome to the Deconstructing Data podcast. I'm Jessie Lezak, CMO at BDEX, along with David Finkelstein, BDEX's co-founder and CEO. How's it going, David?
Hey, Jessie. I'm doing all right. Reporting again from my temporary location, but hopefully next week we'll be back in Sanibel. So looking forward to that.
That would be great. Today's guest is Damian Garbaccio, Chief Business and Marketing Officer at Affinity Solutions. Hi, Damian. How's it going?
It's going well. Thank you for having me. I will say that was the coolest intro into a podcast I've ever seen. So kudos.
Wow. Well, thank you. Well, Affinity Solutions is the first data-led intelligence platform that uses purchases, signals as the authoritative source of truth in helping marketers, agencies, and media organizations deliver emotionally resonant experiences that enrich people's lives. So we're really excited to have you here to tell us a little bit about all of that today, Damian.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. I'm happy to dig in. It's a great topic.
Sounds
Awesome.
good.
Yeah. So Damian, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. So let's sort of kick this off. Maybe you can help us by telling us your story and a little bit about what led you to Affinity Solutions and also what problems Affinity is solving today.
Sure. And it's actually, that's a perfect segue because the problems that I was trying to solve at a variety of companies led me to the Affinity Solutions business. So just a quick background. I had been in a VC-backed data company called Exalate, which was in the advent of programmatic media and data and leveraging data on media to have better outcomes. But that was mostly in the very beginning where data was being applied in very simplistic ways to create more relevant advertising and marketing and help add value to brands. As the data marketplaces and data management platforms grew, my company was eventually bought by Nielsen, obviously in the measurement space. And that business, Exalate, and a couple other businesses that were acquired became the epicenter for the Nielsen Marketing Cloud, which was an ad tech, martech business, again, using data to help brands have better outcomes. But as we kept getting closer and closer and the technology kept improving, the data itself, the actual valuable data that was being used to help these brands, started to have a bunch of problems. One, there was commoditization. There was truly, when you dug in, a lack of very valuable data at scale. And ultimately, the data itself wasn't really providing the value that I specifically thought it should, which is creating better outcomes for those brands and obviously consumers as well. So I went and spent a couple of years at a large partner of Nielsen's that had a history in transaction data and purchase data. And in that, I got to know that space really, really well, the consumer purchase data space. And in doing that, and through some friends actually in the investment banking community who really look at these businesses and the tech, media, telco sector specifically, I got introduced to Affinity. And it was very coincidental, and the timing was perfect because they were looking for an executive leader in the media and marketing solutions area, as well as corp marketing. And so that's how I got connected. And Affinity, as you mentioned, is the leading consumer purchase data. We live and breathe consumer purchase data. So we leverage that data to have brands have better outcomes. And again, I'm happy to go into how that works and why we think that's valuable, but that's my journey in.
No, that's great. That's excellent. In fact, I think that's perfect. Talking about better outcomes. I think that not enough people talk about that. People talk about scale and reach and things like that without talking about outcomes. And from our perspective, it can often get frustrating. It's like what we've always tried to strive for is quality when it comes to data that drives outcomes. And so I think that it's really good timing for Affinity, because we believe that we're at a point right now where, due to market conditions and everything that's gone on, whether it be because of COVID or whether it be because of the the sort of market conditions today and budgets being cut. I think it's getting more and more important for brands to concentrate on those outcomes.
Yeah, and that's at the core. Our business is an outcome business, and it's interesting that that when people talk about financial markets and having impact on ad spend, we look at that as an opportunity because no better time is than the present to apply data to have your marketing dollars go further. So, to dig in a little bit on the specifics of how we see outcomes now, you can have outcomes in different ways, shapes, and forms. If someone goes to your website after something, or there's other KPIs that a brand or entity might have. But at all, we view the outcome as the transaction, the final closing of the loop. Did something work and drive someone to purchase something, to sign up for something? And that outcome data set needs a consumer purchase data set to provide that outcome. So Affinity has, over 100 million credit and debit cards, access to 4,000 different brand transactions. And it's just a massive amount of data, but it has scale. And that's where some of the trade-offs happen. Sometimes you may have really, really rich, valuable data, but it's not scalable, or you have tons and tons of data, but ultimately it's not valuable. So those two things coming together make Affinity extremely special and unique because no one else has it. This data set that exists, but that's only part of it. Part of it is also making sure that it's applied in the right way, because having this raw data that truly shows the transaction or the outcome, and that's what we say, we have the outcome, oftentimes more so even than the brands have themselves. But we need to have it leveraged in the right way, and we need to have it used in the right way. And there's, that's a complicated path because one, there's a lot of planning, buying, optimization, and measuring tools out there that exist already. So getting integrated into those is key. Having brands emotionally and psychologically go from hoping that they get outcomes and performance they want to demanding that they get outcomes and outcomes and transactions that they want. It's critical. And when you look at true outcome, again, we think is the transaction, but now finally the technology is catching up and allowing some of this data to be applied to media in ways that it never could before. So there's obviously a variety of places we play. We play in the media planning space. We play in the activation and sort of buying phase. We play in the measurement and optimization phase. So all of those require our data to be served up in a way that's palatable and ingestible by brands, agencies, media companies. So, while it sounds intuitive and sounds easy, it's not as easy as it sounds. And it's a bit of an uphill battle making sure that all of this stuff comes together. But no matter what, we know we have in line of sight a really, really valuable opportunity over the next 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, that's always one of the biggest challenges when you're taking a data set and you're not only trying to activate on it, but then measure against the outcomes of it. And so there's always those challenges of how do you make sure that everything's talking to each other so you can make all of that happen.
Yeah, and that's a great point, because one of the things that we espouse, and that's true, is that we're an additive metric. We're additive value. Yes, you can use our data standalone, but we think that measurement and marketing providers and technology providers in the ad tech, martech space are all clients and partners of ours. So if you think about, just look at TV measurement or anything digital, if you think about Nielsen or Comscore or the sort of upstarts of VideoAmp and iSpot and Samba, all of those measure with their own methodology and have what they think is a great measurement tool. But none of them have a a metric that outlines the number of buyers and level of spend on a particular piece of content or media. And that's what they're missing, and that's what we're providing. So we're additive to those solutions, one. And secondly, as connected TV grows and gets faster, like the applications that have typically been applied to digital are now getting applied to CTV. And I don't think as a sort of planning and buying sophistication is there yet either. So there's a lot of things that need to come together. But the good news is there's tremendous demand, and there's a desire, as you can see just from the market, there's a desire to use multi-metric, multi-currency, a potpourri, if you look at some of the large media companies out there, to come up with what they think is the best measurement of their media for the brands that they serve.
Yeah, that's a good point, and those metrics are different for every client.
Correct.
Therein lies some of the challenges, right?
Absolutely, and
yeah.
And right now, and again, luckily we can integrate seamlessly anywhere, but there's different for linear TV, there's different for set-top box TV, there's different for CTV and digital and so forth. So, is it in the next year or two going to be a place where ultimately everyone sees media through one lens? No. And I don't know if it should ever necessarily be there, but bringing a lot of the big things together and creating metrics and outcomes that work for the brand, that are intuitive and make sense, versus relying on proxies, that's sort of some of the issues that we've seen, and we're seeing a lot more from customers and frankly from the market, is that historically there's a lot of companies out there that use proxies for outcomes, or proxies for eyeballs on things that are certain demographics, and that's just not good enough anymore. And it's funny, I was reading an interesting interview on, if you're familiar with Fubo TV, they were a partner, we did a case study with them, but separately they were talking about just the mess of measurement when it comes to, in this case, connected TV, because they said, oh, we have 1.3 million subscribers, that's a good business, that's we're doing really well, but that 1.3 million subscribers, it's very sports focused, is being forced to measure often against, a panel of 80,000. And so you layer those two things together. And I think their EVP of sales said, and we had 7 people and 4 were out on vacation. So like the idea of that happening is kind of ridiculous. And that's what another thing that Affinity is doing is, like, you should have, you need millions and millions and millions of data points on households, on individuals, with consent, with valuable data. So each time you get to something you need and you don't have, it's very easy to have challenges and barriers that can't be overcome. Luckily, and again, another reason for me joining is at each step of the need for the data, we happen to have that true set.
Yeah. So as with every word that you speak, I'm thinking of ways that our companies can be working together. I'm not sure why we're not already working
yeah,
together.
definitely.
So we'll have to take that offline.
Well, absolutely. And there's a DocuSign is coming your way.
Yes. All right. Well, that was basically the first topic. We didn't even have to introduce it. That was awesome. We naturally transitioned into it. So the next one we were going to talk about was new media measurement innovation, particularly coming from Affinity Solutions. So could you tell us a little bit about what you guys are up to there, Damian?
Yeah, and that's sort of the culmination, it's a good preamble and discussion coming to this topic. So it's a great agenda. And also the impetus for me joining is because I wanted to, at other places I've been, I've had, I've come in and around what is that outcome, but never been there. And this is the opportunity in terms of true innovation when it comes to media measurement, what we're trying to tackle. And by no means, again, I'm a humble person. No one has a silver bullet for this and no one solved it, but we're in a fantastic, amazing position to do it. And I'll give an example and then sort of outline what we're doing. But it was announced in February, March, prior to my joining, that Affinity partnered with Analect within the Omnicom Group business unit within the Omnicom Group holding company, to essentially create a new, what we're calling purchase media metric. And they obviously saw, like many others, but they're a little bit ahead of the herd in terms of really trying to activate and take insights to action on this. They wanted to initially start with linear television because it wasn't addressable, and they wanted a way to improve the way that there was planning, essentially buying, and then down the road, optimizing against that. So since then, we've been in dialogue, and they happen to use a platform for linear TV buying, which we've integrated with. And the output of that is, along with age, gender, concentration scores that may be used in the current traditional linear TV measurement process. We have the purchase media metric, which is a score of number of buyers or level of spend on brand, on category, on brands, et cetera. So the idea is, this is just another additive, but we think transformative innovation that will allow a brand to come on and say, okay, I've lost share in a particular market. I've become the number 2, and I want to go conquest my competitors. We're launching a new product that's related to people who purchase at this store. So really take a good view as you purchase linear television initially, of number of buyers, level of spend, and really what is the purchase metric associated with linear TV that I'm buying. And obviously just be more targeted, have more relevant advertising. There's a lot of positive things that go to that. Linear TV is just the application that we're starting with Omni and Analect, because that's where they see the most value, and I tend to agree with them for their use cases. That said, it's applied to CTV, to any data set where we can append this media score to provide that information that anyone who wants to be more efficient, whether it's at the planning stage, the activation stage, the optimization stage, any of those areas, data can be leveraged, the media metric can be leveraged to have better outcomes. And that's our goal. It's not for us to say, we're going to grade our own homework. The entities themselves have pretty sophisticated ways that they're planning, buying, and optimizing media. And we need to be, and will be, a significant piece of that that is helps them and ultimately helps their client have better outcomes. And on the media side, they want to show, and rightly so, the value of their media, specifically for audiences and purchasers and consumers of the brands that advertise on there. So that's really the big innovation that's happening at Affinity. There's a lot of other things happening around audiences and sales lift and things like that. But the purchase media metric is key because it really is going to transform, we feel, the way media is essentially transacted on. And it's really making all media accountable. And that's what we want.
That's a good point. And I think that even from what you said, taking that and applying it to CTV makes it even more measurable with respect to those outcomes than in linear. So, and it's a natural progression that will drive those outcomes that the brands need.
Yeah, and in many ways, the application in digital is easier. Frankly, not easier, but it's an easier connect, let's call it. So that's not just a fast follow, but that's like in parallel. There's some very simple. Some of the stuff we're envisioning is very sophisticated and so forth, but there's some very easy, make a left or right at this road. Opportunities that can help tremendously, that can be applied, in the short term. And that's obviously, we're chatting and in discussions and with all the CTV folks. So it's that's going to be fascinating. And I heard you, David, mention you're at CES. We'll be there too, and that's where a lot of kickoffs for some of the things that we're talking about are going to happen.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, so we should definitely take some time to meet while we're both at CES, definitely.
Absolutely.
And some of the things that you mentioned that you're doing with Fubo, we have a partnership with TiVo that could be really interesting. That where we do both on the identity and audience side, that it might be really interesting for us to have a conversation about that as well. So
yeah, well, Fubo, and I'll send you the case study. It was really about their and it's fascinating. The measurement piece was just an industry article, but we helped them with I'll send you the case study, but we have to help them with looking at their subscriber base.
Awesome. Yeah, cool.
Interesting.
Well, I love what you guys are doing. We could talk all day about this stuff.
Absolutely. Well, and since we're on the topic of new innovation, you want to share anything about Omni IQ, David?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, happy to jump in and share a little bit about what we're doing on that side. So, Omni IQ has always been sort of our, bread and butter beyond identity. But we recently launched a new version of it, which makes it a lot more easy and accessible to both SMBs and marketing companies and agencies that are representing them in sort of the mid-tier market. And so with that new product, companies can now create their own audiences. They can upload their own first-party data into a data clean room, get all kinds of analytics on it, and then from that, not only purchase some data that's tied to those consumers to allow them to enrich the existing data that they have, but also, like I said, take that data and that first-party data and then use our machine learning platform to build extended audiences to help them further reach people that are their ideal customers and push those throughout the ad tech ecosystem. So that's a new product we launched, and it's all about driving outcomes for our customers because, again, same thing as you said, we believe that that's going to be the new trend, like the previous trend being everybody wants scale and reach. We don't think that can last forever. We think that more and more brands need to concentrate on what are those outcomes that their campaigns are driving and how they're going to get there. And so this is a tool that's aimed to use our platform to enable them to do that. But most of it is, in partnership with, with companies that are providing amazing data sets like you have. And that's one of the reasons why I think that there's an interesting opportunity for us to work together on that level as well.
Very cool.
Absolutely. Well, let's get into our third topic, tech stack. So if you don't mind, Damian, could you share with some of our listeners, what are some of your favorite tools in your tech stack?
Yeah, so we use at Affinity, we use Slack a lot. I'm a fan and didn't use it at prior companies as much and use it now. The sales and marketing org leverages HubSpot. And we are a Salesforce business as well, so we use that for our CRM. But I will say that the coolest, I would say it's part of our tech stack, but it's not part of the Affinity necessarily, like internal, is we've started about 6 months ago, and it's, no pun intended, snowballed here with Snowflake. They're a fascinating company and companies like them for us. We have a partnership with them. We have a lot of clients leveraging our data via Snowflake, and we just think a couple things that are super valuable there. One, it really helps with any current and future privacy-related regulatory issues that any people coming in are trying to execute on. It helps pass the sniff test on a lot of things. I think the scale and access to clients is fantastic, and it's just very intuitive. So they are again a partner, a tech enablement platform, and I think that's a very and I'm sure both of you have lots on this topic, but that data cloud, clean room, very privacy friendly distribution and access of data is fantastic. So that's probably top of my list.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, every single one of those are on our list as well. And so we use them all, and we're partnered with Snowflake as well. So
we hear Snowflake a lot on this show.
Yeah, they're doing a great job. It's very cool, and as part of my role, the enterprise sort of commercial relationships like that fall under it, and that's one where they're huge enablers of. I mean, granted, it's we're all capitalists to a certain extent. Like it's helping them, but they truly are believers in the data, not just our data, in that connectivity and that compute, and it's been very successful so far, and we have huge goals related to their platform.
Very cool. Well, to wrap us up on our last topic, Damian, could you tell us a little bit about your new role as Affinity's new Chief Business and Marketing Officer?
Sure. And it is, and I was explaining earlier in the show, or when I was getting ready to start, Jessie and David, Chief Business Officer can mean a lot of things, but so one, the main reason, again, besides the great people and the great data, I joined is because it gave me a chance to really focus on what I love doing and what I think I'm good at, and what Chief Business and Marketing Officer means. Obviously, there's CMO, handle all corporate marketing, which I personally really, really like in this market that we're in. As David was talking about earlier, there's a lot going on. There's fragmentation, there's consolidation, there's incumbents. So marketing and getting clear messaging, and owning sort of a real story there is essential, and I love that. So marketing is one of the legs of the stool, and I'm really passionate about that. Second is essentially enterprise, corporate, commercial engagement. So think about the agency holdcos at the C-suite, any of the tier one media folks at Disney, Comcast, certainly any of the big tech and data. So, think Experian or think Snowflake or things like that, and all others. And then lastly, a lot of the marketing and measurement platforms. So making sure that the purchase media metric and other data sets are integrated into where media is bought, sold, and planned on. So that's the second. And then lastly is corp dev. As we get bigger and grow, looking at ways to advantage the business, whether it's tuck-in acquisitions or other strategic commercial engagements that are a little stickier than just partnership. So those are the three areas that encompass the Chief Business and Marketing Officer, and are exciting to me, and really why I joined and why I'm passionate about the company.
Very cool. Do a different
Awesome.
view here so we can get all of our heads in the screen. But in closing, Damian, would you like to tell listeners how they can find you?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, go on LinkedIn. I'm there a ton, and I think this is too. Please just reach out. I'm happy to chat always and spread the Affinity word. Also on Twitter at DA Garbaccio. And yeah, that's it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us on our Deconstructing Data podcast. Any last words from either of you before we close out?
No, just awesome to have you here. Thank you so much, Damian. Great to have you on the show, and look forward to hooking up at CES, and we'll grab a drink.
It's a pleasure. You guys do a great job. If I didn't have to run, I would sit around and talk about my favorite streaming shows, which I just did a presentation on that, not on my streaming, but that's the new Wild West. So I'm excited. Maybe next year we'll get on a streaming have the streaming as an agenda. But it's been a pleasure, and thank you so much for having me, Jessie and David.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being here. And in closing, for anyone in our audience who might prefer an audio format, you can find the Deconstructing Data podcast on all major podcast apps. Also, if you find deconstructing data interesting, as David was talking about earlier, you might be interested in viewing complementary analytics on your first-party customer data. Simply go to BDEX.com. I can put the QR code up here for anyone who might be interested, but check out Omni IQ and get some free analytics on your first-party customer data. So tune into our Omni IQ workshop that we have going on October 19th. And I can also put those details up here. But we would love to have you come listen to David talk about Omni IQ for 30 minutes straight. It's going to be great. And we're going to actually show you the product and show you how it can give you complementary analytics, but then also how you can upgrade to see even more really cool stuff that we were talking about earlier. So we would love to hear from listeners. If you can, please reach out to us at info@bdex.com with any feedback you have about the show, or if you have recommendations for guests you would like to have come on, please let us know at info@bdex.com. Thank you all for being here. We hope to see you next week. And with that, I'll close.